This is the Inner Chief Podcast, episode 373.
So they walked out and my initial emotion was, well, you know, how dare they come in and talk to the senior coach like that? Well, I'm the senior coach here. But once the emotion dissipated, I started to think, well, one is how good is it that they feel safe enough to come in and talk to me about it? How lucky am I that I've got a senior leadership group that are prepared to have that trust and come and tell me about it versus not talk about it.
G'day, this is the Inner Chief Podcast, episode 373 with Neil Craig, former AFL Head Coach, on high-performance environments, your North Star, and decision-making under pressure. I am your host, Greg Layton, founder of Chiefmaker and the Council of Chiefs. I believe there is a great chief in all of us, and that through listening to the stories, strategies and techniques of great CEOs and gurus, each of you can find and leave your own legacy through your work and life. The Inner Chief Podcast is where you will learn how to think and make moves like a CEO, like a true chief. For over a decade, I've helped CEOs and senior executives around the world boldly lead change, inspire their people, and leave a legacy. On the Inner Chief Podcast, I bring these stories to life with deep diving CEO interviews, interspersed with minisodes covering key leadership challenges, so you will find your own path to greatness as an executive. In this episode, we replay a chat I had with Neil Craig in 2019. Neil is best known as being a former Australian rules footballer and as a head coach of the Adelaide Crows Football Club. His other stints in the AFL have included being the fitness advisor at the Crows and having various coaching roles at the Melbourne Demons, Essendon Bombers, Carlton Blues and Gold Coast Suns. Between 2017 and 2022, he was England Rugby's high-performance manager under head coach Eddie Jones. In this Best of Series Masterclass, Neil Craig will share what a high-performance environment is and how to create one, why knowing your North Star, your purpose and values is critical to success, how to make complex decisions under pressure, and why leadership is not about you, but all about you. So without further ado, Chiefs, let's hear from our Best of Series guest, Neil Craig. Okay, we are here with Neil Craig, AFL coaching legend, now rugby coaching superstar. Neil, welcome to the Inner Chief.
Good, Greg. Yeah, thanks for the invitation to have a chat. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be wonderful, mate. We're going to get right into high performance in general and how high performance shifts between different industries and sectors and sports. Before we do that, though, mate, I'd love to know where you come from and can you tell a story that sums up your childhood?
Yeah, when I reflect back on my childhood, I was born in country South Australia and left home at 13.
Wow.
Yeah, which was a really, whilst I didn't know it at the time, when I look back on it, it was a really interesting and great time of my life. Now, when I say left home, that was by design. My family, we would do our schooling up to year 7, and then we would go to Adelaide to do our secondary schooling. So
boarding.
Yeah, and we would board in Adelaide. So I left home at 13, and I was lucky enough to board in a boarding house that was run by the Norwood Football Club, which is an SANFL club in Adelaide. And so there were 22 of us in this boarding house, all with the passion to play SANFL league football. So, and the age varied from me as being a 13-year-old up to probably 21. So the next oldest was about 17. So it was a big gap between 13 and 17. So I learned a lot of lessons very quickly in that time. But I look back on it, and so what did it give me? I had to stand on my own 2 feet very quickly. A lot of independence. So yeah, because I left the family unit. So they were all positives, and they were some of the best years of my life because I was in an environment. I was living my dream as a 13-year-old. I just wanted to play league football back in those days, as well as go to school. But what, of course, because I was away from my family for so long, I reckon I lost that real strong connection to the family unit.
Yeah.
Because you're not there. I used to go back there for holidays, but from 13 onwards, I spent most of my life away from the family unit. I've got 2 daughters now, and I see how close they are to our family, particularly their mother. I look back on those times, and there was some really positive that came out of it, but the one in terms of, the real close family connection, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
I probably didn't have that. Yeah, that was a great time of my life from 13 till around about 17 or 18 years of age.
Yeah. Now, listen, I've got a question we ask everyone, which is, well, I'll ask you 2 questions. What was your first ever job? First.
And now we're talking about full-time job as in...
No, just where you're at your first coin, like a paper route or first part-time job.
Okay, I remember as if it was yesterday. As a 13-year-old, in the school holidays, I started doing what we call a roustabout job in a shearing shed.
Right, yeah.
And that involved with a broom, the shearers would shear the sheep and there'd be bits and pieces left when they put the sheep in the pen, so I'd have to sweep that.
Sure.
I'd have to help the shearers pull sheep out of the pen. I'd have to put sheep in the pen.
Yeah.
I have to put up with all their pranks.
What was the best prank?
The best prank was the shearer asked me one day to go and find a wrinkle stretcher, right? And he said, I think it's over there in the shed, about 50 metres away. So I went over there and there was a guy in the shed and I said, I'm looking for the wrinkle stretcher. And at the time he smirked, but he said, look, it's not here. He said, someone just borrowed it a minute ago. He said, it's over in this other shed. So I spent about 2 hours looking for this wrinkle stretcher. And eventually I went back to the shearer and said, look, I can't find this wrinkle stretcher. He said, well, there's a good reason for that, Craig. He said, because it doesn't exist, mate. But I remember my first pay was $40 for the week.
$40 for the week.
For the week. And we got paid in cash. It was in a little envelope, a little brown envelope. And at the boarding house on the Friday night of my first full week of working, I remember putting that little paycheck next to my dinner plate and it was $40 and I thought I was an absolute millionaire.
Yeah.
So that was my first job in terms of getting paid for it. Then I'd work in cafes and delis and that sort of thing from a part-time point of view. But my first full-time job was with a place called the Adelaide Sports Sciences Clinic in Adelaide. Right. So that was coming out of a phys ed degree.
Yeah, sure.
At Flinders University.
Yeah, because your background is phys ed, physiology and...
Yeah. Background is phys ed teacher trained. Worked for 2 or 3 years at the Sports Science Clinic. Then I went back to Flinders Uni, did a master's degree.
Right.
It wasn't sports science back in those days. I was actually in physiology, but with a major in exercise physiology. So
and,
great memories.
What kind of car did you get around Adelaide in? What were you driving? The very first car?
Yeah, I remember my very first car was a little green, olive green, over a white roof, Torana. And once again, a little automatic.
Classic.
It's classic. My mum lent me some money to buy it.
Yeah.
I think it was about $2,500 or something.
Yeah.
Which back in those days, it was a fair bit ago. But I remember it once again as if it was yesterday.
Magic.
Yeah.
Good times. Okay, so where did your life go after school? Like you played a lot of competitive footy. What was that like for you as a young man?
No, I loved it. I mean, I remember, Greg, I reckon I was about 10 years of age. And I just, because growing up in the country, sport's a big part of the community. Sure. Like you just play sport. I remember this unbelievable passion I had to play Australian football, but also to play league football in Adelaide.
Yeah.
And
which is the top league, right?
That was, in those days, that was the top league to play in.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sort of sound big-headed here, but I knew at 10 that I was going to play league football. Because I just wanted it that bad.
Yeah. And
so, like any kid at school back in those days, before school, morning recess, lunchtime, afternoon recess, after school, you just practice. You just end-to-end kick. You just got a football, in your hand all the time. So I've always wanted to play at the highest level. So eventually I was able to do that at the Norwood Football Club. It's sort of, I've only ever, in reality, up until even till now, I've only ever really been involved in high-performance sport, either, from a playing perspective or my work. So it's been really interesting that I've sort of stayed in that area, and I often ask myself why haven't I changed? And it's probably because I really gravitate to people who actually want to have this passion to be the best they can possibly be at the highest level. Not that I don't appreciate developmental, and there's a whole range of different levels of sport that people play, and they're really important to have those available. But I really do love working with people who are highly motivated when you get them. You don't have to motivate these people you're working with. In actual fact, your biggest challenge is not to demotivate them. And they just want to be the best they can. And so to work in that environment on a daily basis is just quite stimulating.
Well, you must be doing something right, because all these years later, you're still working as a high performance coach, and now you're coaching. You've coached an AFL at top level, you've coached Olympics at the top level, and now you're coaching England rugby at the top level. What is your secret sauce as far as being able to add value constantly over such a long period of time? What do you think makes you just a bit different?
Yeah, I think it's a passion for me. So it's something I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Yeah, I don't see it as a job. It's that classical statements that you read about, and you would, other people that you interview would talk about that. But the fact that I'm dealing with highly motivated people at that level, I mean, they don't get to that level without being highly motivated, and they have a very clear picture of what they want to do. You have the other thing you have is that you have this capacity to enable people, or you help them to be the best they can possibly be, and you get great satisfaction out of that.
Yeah, sure.
Just sometimes when even someone just comes and asks you for help, like help's a pretty powerful word. Can you help me?
Yeah, sure.
You receive a written letter in the post of an athlete sort of just thanking you, for what you did.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great self-satisfaction that you get from it. Apart from that, the other thing is in the high performance world is it's the influence that it has on society. Just recently, we played a test match at Twickenham. There's 82,000 English supporters there. When we beat France at Twickenham, the amount of joy, happiness, emotion that it generates, not just for those 82,000, but for the whole of England. Yeah. So, and people want to be connected with that sort of, that sport and that level of sport because of what it gives them. So there's this sort of higher purpose that you get into as well, which I didn't have when I was younger, because I was very selfish as a young player and as a young coach. But I think that as you get a bit older and you think a bit differently and you see different aspects of life, you start to appreciate that this higher purpose of what sport does for people or can give people is unbelievable.
So what do people misunderstand about the world of elite sport? They've never been in it. They see it from the outside. What do they misunderstand about it, do you think?
I think they misunderstand, or they wouldn't know that a functional high performance environment is really uncomfortable because of daily feedback that you get as an athlete or a coach or staff member, because of the high standards set on a daily basis that you have to meet. A lot of the sports, have a high public scrutiny from the media. Your performance is often reported upon on the back page of the Daily Telegraph or whatever it may be. The volume of training and the repetitive nature of training. So the sport can actually sometimes be quite boring. Yeah. Because we've got to go and do that again and practice again and we go again. Most people wouldn't understand that. They would see the performance once again at an AFL game here in front of 60, 70, 80,000 people. They would see it at Twickenham or wherever the case may be in terms of rugby. And they think that's really, it's high profile and it's exciting, and it is, all the work and the environment that's in behind all that. And that's why I often say that a high performance environment, Greg, is not for everyone. And I often say that to athletes, that this may not be for you, particularly the one that we're setting up and the standards that we have and the values and behaviours that we're setting as parameters. It may not be for you, and that's okay, because as I said, the most functional and the best high performance environments that I've been in are not for everyone, and they're very clear in their mind that they don't want to make it for everyone. Yeah,
it's in fact, as you say, it's very clear that they define it as something that not everyone will be able to successfully, what's the right word, thrive in that environment, because it's so difficult.
It is, yeah. And it may be that they can thrive in another one. Yep. Okay. But in the one that they might choose, where the ones I've been involved in, it's as I said, it's not for everyone. Yep. And it's really important that after a period of time that you have that discussion with the athlete and the player, whether they want to continue, because it's a tough life.
How do you word or phrase that kind of discussion?
I just had the discussion. I just asked them about how they're handling the standards, the behaviours, expectations, the enjoyment of the environment. Are they enjoying what they're doing?
Are they enjoying the challenge? Because I think this is the other thing, is when you do have that functional high performance environment, which is what we're saying is something that is actually working the top 5% of the best teams, it's uncomfortable, but you're up for it. You want nothing more than to turn up and be involved in that team, because the rate of improvement is so high, and what it's requiring is to be your very, very best self.
Yeah.
Boy, is it challenging.
Yeah, it's challenging, it's demanding.
Mm.
And that's why a lot of the important discussions that I get involved with players is I often ask them about why they want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, there's still this question of why.
Mm.
And everyone's a bit different. You know, some do it for the financial aspect of it.
Yep.
Some players do it more for, it can be their grandmother, it can be their parents, it can be their family. Some of the guys I've spoken with in the English national team, you know, they have this great sense of responsibility to the country.
Mm.
So they actually want to perform for the country because
Sure.
they see the look on faces at Twickenham of the 82,000 when they perform really well and the emotion they can create. But once an athlete knows his or her why, that's really important because it's once the why is embedded, it gives them the energy and the resilience they need to handle the environment that you just spoke about. Because it's not, you know, there's a lot of tough times because you don't win all the time.
No.
And you do get injured and you do miss out on selection.
Yep.
And you do get criticised in the public arena and you do have contractual, you know, negotiations and you are away from your family for long periods of time and it can be lonely and you don't get on with everyone in the environment. So if I just painted the picture for you, what it looks like, and you might say, well, that's not for me. But there are so many good things as well. But that's why your why that gives you the energy and that perseverance and resilience is so important to know that.
Yeah. Chief, one of the core skills of all great chiefs is the ability to interview and recruit the very best performers to your team. Now, many chiefs say to me that they get up to 25 or even 40% of their recruitment decisions wrong. Now, many of you who listen to this show will know that over the last 6 years, we have asked dozens of CEOs what is their number one interview question when recruiting for senior roles. What we have done is turn that into an invaluable resource. It is the 30 most powerful interview questions used by CEOs to hire high performers. These are the questions that reveal the true nature of the person in front of you. They are the ones that give or create that truth-telling moment that will help you decide whether to hire or not. Chief, if you want this resource, just go to chiefmaker.com/interview and just pop in your details and download the detailed PDF. And I was going to ask you about, but earlier on, like, it is one of the reasons you've lasted 40 odd years at the top, is that because of your ability to be resilient and adapt and grow and tap into your why.
Yeah, my why has changed over the journey. As I said to you before, I mean, I was very much self-orientated, quite selfish, which I think in some ways as an athlete you have to be. But even when I first started coaching, you know, at the SANFL level in Adelaide and in the AFL level, you know, my why as a senior coach changed over that time. It went initially probably a bit of ego-driven, you know, well, look at me, head coach, whatever, to in the end, no, you have a capacity to influence lives here, both players. You have a capacity to be an enabler of people to be their best. You have a responsibility and accountability to put smiles on people's faces, whether that be the supporters of your AFL club, young sick kids that come in that idolise a particular player, and you can put a smile on their face, you know. So,
did anything happen to shift you? Like any defining moment or stinging feedback you got that really stopped you in your tracks and made you, I suppose, have a leap in character and maturity?
Well, in terms of feedback, I mean, feedback's a big part of a high performance environment. I mean, you get it daily.
Yep.
Players get it daily, internally, and they get it externally. And on game day, they often get it from just over the fence, you know. Immediate feedback.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a senior coach of the Adelaide Football Club. I remember I conducted a team meeting, and I made a particular joke about a player, you know, in the team meeting. I thought in the right manner, you know, and there was laughter in the meeting, and you know, there were laughter from teammates, and I, you know, probably even thought that the player I was talking about even laughed and saw the funny side of what I was talking about. That afternoon, 3 or 4 guys of the senior leadership group came to see me and just said they wanted to give me some feedback. And I said, yeah, come in. So they sat me down. We sat down and they said, look, we just want to talk to you about that team meeting, Craigie, this morning, when you made a joke about player A, just letting you know that he felt quite belittled by it and didn't really appreciate the comment. And probably in reality, we as a group probably didn't appreciate it either. And I said, well, yeah, but everyone laughed. And they said, yeah, well, we're just passing it on that we laughed, but in reality, So they walked out, and my initial emotion was, well, how dare they come in and talk to the senior coach like that? Well, I'm the senior coach here. But once the emotion dissipated, I started to think, well, one is, how good is it that they feel safe enough to come in and talk to me about it? How lucky am I that I've got a senior leadership group that are prepared to have that trust and come and tell me about it versus not talk about it. And so there was an element of trust, that brought in the concept of trust. So it was good feedback for me not to continue that behaviour. The bigger message that I learned from a coaching perspective is, and I pass this on now to coaches, be very careful of the spoken word, because once it comes out of your mouth, you can't grab it and bring it back in again. And so communication, verbal communication, in the end, Greg, is really the only tool we have as coaches to have an effect. And so be very careful. Be aware of the words you're using, because they can be so positive, and yet sometimes in a lot of ways they can be so negative and have an effect on you. So from a coaching perspective, that was one that stood out to me and gave me a really good lesson as a senior coach.
Sure. So at the moment, you're high performance coach for England Rugby, and it's going to go through to the Rugby World Cup.
Yep.
What does that involve, and how is it different to the work you did maybe within AFL?
I'm not there from a technical point of view, because I haven't grown up with rugby, and I've never played rugby, so I don't know the nuances of the game. But in reality, for the job that I do, that it's probably not even important that I've got that. In actual fact, some people would argue that it could be an advantage not to have it, because you come in with a different perspective of the sport. Yeah. I find the sport quite brutal. It's a really intense sport. I find that the power of the referee and the way the referee is treated is highly respectful, which is one aspect of the sport I enjoy. But it's different to AFL. Yeah. There's great diversity in nationalities. We're dealing with, obviously, English players. We're dealing with players from New Zealand, Tonga, Samoa, Nigeria. And so they all present slightly different issues and problems for you, as in just from a cultural perspective. The way, for example, Tongans receive feedback is different to the way English guys receive feedback. Dealing at the level that I'm at, working with in England, like, we're dealing with the best players in England, and in some cases the best players in the world. Even on selection, what you find is that some of those guys have never been dropped before. Yes. In clubland.
No.
You see? But they get into the English national team, and all of a sudden they're not playing in that team. And so once you've got to be able to manage those emotions and the conversations that go with that. So there are some of the differences. My actual role there is probably 3 or 4 key roles. First and foremost it's to be what I call a critical friend to the head coach, a guy called Eddie Jones, who coached the Wallabies back in the early 2000s. And that's a really important role, because having been a senior coach myself, it's a lonely position. And because of the nature of just the chair that you sit in, it's very rare, in actual fact, for people to give you feedback because of the power of the chair. And so part of my role is to be there to discuss, to debate, to provide feedback to Eddie on anything from a coaching perspective as him and as a senior coach. I try and play that role the best I can. I do a lot of work with the senior leadership group, which I really enjoy. And once again, their concept of leadership, when I first went there, was a bit foreign to mine, which was once again was more of a cultural thing. But I really enjoy that. I do a lot of work in sort of, to use a phrase, coach the coaches. So we spend, all these time and resources in coaching the players. In actual fact, the people who have the biggest influence on players are the coaches. So there's this concept, well, who's coaching the coaches? Who's giving them feedback every day, about how the job they're doing and what they look like, and rewarding those guys for the work that they do. A big part of my workload is working closely with the coaches and being a mentor and a coach in that area. And I don't need to have a rugby background in that. I mean, I certainly don't get involved in the technical side of the coaching of rugby, but presentations, one-on-one conversations, building relationships, problem players, working with other departments, relationships with a senior coach. I mean, they're all aspects of coaching that need to be, continually reviewed. I do a bit of technical coaching in terms of the high ball, which is classical in AFL. Sure. So I really enjoy some hands-on coaching there, but I mean, that's not a huge amount. And the other one is, probably because of my past experiences in working high performance sport, is just to help collaboration between all the different departments of a high performance environment. So you've got a coaching department, you've got an analytics department, you've got logistics, you've got a sports science, you've got strength and conditioning, you've got medical. So you can just imagine the capacity for all those to collaborate, communicate, be on the same page. It doesn't always run smoothly. So, to spend some time about trying to maximise the working capacity of all those different environments. So that's sort of the role I play, with the English rugby team.
So if someone was to say, well, look, I lead a team at work or even a sporting team, and they said, well, I want to build a high-performance culture.
Yeah.
How would they go about that? How would you go about it?
Well, for me, there'd be 4 or 5 questions I'd ask them. I want them to understand about why their company or club exists. So this is, once again, it's this high purpose about why. Why is it important? Is an English national rugby team important to England? And if the answer is yes, well, why is it important? Is the Carlton Football Club important to the AFL and to the people, to the Carlton supporters? And people would say, well, yes, it is. So you need to have an understanding of that as a starting point. And then I'd work through the question, particularly with the head coach, is where do you want to take this team or organisation? It could be your CEO, or it could be, in this case, the head coach. Where do you want to take this organisation? What does it look like? So, because in reality, you're a provider of hope, and to maybe create something different and better in the future. So this is, where do you want to go?
Yeah, that's like Napoleon quote, a leader is a dealer in hope.
Okay, yeah. So you need to have this vision of what it looks like. So that's sort of, the why and where do you want to go? And then you need to talk about, well, what's important in that to get there? What do we need to do to create that vision? And that once again, there's a lot of things that come out of that question about what does it need to look like? That's what we need to do. How are you going to do it?
Yeah.
And the last one I would ask is, okay, so we've gone for what we need to do. How are we going to do it? When will you know? Now, people obviously in high performance sport, well, you'll know when the scoreboard changes, because the scoreboard's the only thing that external people have got.
Sure.
I often talk about, well, what will winning look like internally without the scoreboard?
Yes.
So how will you know that you're progressing, and when will you know that you've arrived in those sort of areas? So, so that would be my. I mean, that's, and if you talk specifically about each of those different concepts, Greg, I mean, there's a lot of detail in all of that.
Sure, yeah.
But to me, they're the 4 or 5 questions that I ask.
It's interesting. I was chatting to an AFL player the other day. He's in a leadership team of one of the big clubs, and we're just talking about his leadership team that he's a part of. And he said, we've been working on our culture for 4 or 5 years. This is the year. You can feel it.
Yeah.
You can see it. The quality of conversation has changed. The way people are turning up has changed. The energy has changed.
Yeah.
Now, and he said, last year we almost had it.
Yeah.
This year we have it.
Okay.
I was like, wow.
So he's describing to you in his own way about these are the changes that he's seen.
That's right.
And that's his scoreboard, that we're getting better better, and eventually get to a tipping point where all of a sudden those things come together.
That's right.
And then guess what happens? The scoreboard changes.
Yeah. And their scoreboard has changed for them. That's for sure.
There you go.
They're having some year. Okay. So what about your mentors in your career? Did you have any mentors that took you under their wing?
Yeah. I mean, I had, particularly when I was coaching. I probably, in hindsight, I wish I had had more mentors when I was playing. But back in those days, it wasn't even thought of. But when I was coaching, I had mentors internally in the club, which were really important. I had mentors outside the club, which was some not involved in football at all, but would look at it from an interest point of view. So I think that in a snapshot, Greg, I think the mentors are really important. If for no other reason that they would just ask you a question about why do you think that way? What do you think about that? You've made a decision. Why did you make that decision?
Yeah, sure.
Or I'm thinking about making a decision, and the mentor might say, well, why? Why are you going to go that way? Have you thought of something different? And so all they do is, I find they just keep you balanced in your thinking and try and keep the emotion out of it, because when you're involved in high performance sport, there can be a lot of emotion, particularly when things are not going well and not successful.
Yeah. So
the capacity to be able to lead under adversity is a really important concept, but they just give you some balance. And I just find, some of the best decisions I think I've made in sport have been because I've had a mentor who's asked really good questions. Do they give me their opinion? Not very often. In actual fact, rarely do they give me their opinion. It's more about, here's a question.
Let's just divert slightly into decision making and talk about When you're in a high performance environment, it's hard to know, or in any environment, sometimes it's hard to know what the next move is. Should you tweak this? Should you do this? Should you improve that? How do you make clear decisions in complex environments that just have so many moving parts? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's the experience factor. That's the art of coaching. That's the capacity to see around corners. The capacity as a senior coach in particular to have double vision. Now, what I mean by that is to know what's important now and also know what's important in the future of where we're going.
Sure, yeah.
Because you've got to weigh that up sometimes. Whereas if you haven't got that, you'll just keep making decisions based on what's important now. Sometimes that decision is not best for where you're going. So it's quite complicated.
Yeah, sure.
In decision making.
Yeah.
And that's why a couple of things. Your capacity as a senior coach or as a leader to have some calmness in your thinking. So and to maintain stress levels at a good level, because they're complex decisions that you've got to make and think through. And the key thing so you've got to know what the critical information is and the critical decision you've got to make. From a leadership point of view, it gets back to your philosophy, but the best leaders I've been involved in make what I call the right decision. And that's more often than not the most difficult one to make, because it's you get faced with different options. You get faced with what's the most popular decision. You can choose that one. You'll get confronted with what's a safe decision to make, what's the best political decision to make. Very rarely all those associated with what's the right decision. And so you need to be very clear as a leader that, and this gets back to your philosophy as a leader, I guess. But for me, the best leaders make the right decision.
Sure.
And I learned that lesson strongly with a guy called Charlie Walsh in the Atlanta Olympics, when he had to make selection decisions on athletes about who would actually ride and win for Australia, which weren't popular or and political and whatever. So, but he made what he thought was the right decision.
Righto, Chiefs. More from Neil in a minute. Now, recently we featured another best of episode, replaying a chat I had with George Hunt, CIO of the Year. We spoke about winning hearts and minds, technology as a strategy, and the little things of leadership. Here's what George had to say about aligning people to a vision.
I think to win their hearts and minds, you have to have a compelling vision or a compelling proposition to offer them, and you have to sell it to them. And if you sell the proposition to them, you can then sell the journey to them. And if you can sell the journey to them, you can grab their heart. My job becomes really easy there. My job is to set them up for success because I've already won them over. The convincing has been done at the front, rather than you wait until you hit the difficult points in a program or delivery of something, and people are questioning whether their heart is in this or not. So it's almost like you bring forward emotional connection to the beginning, and then you trade on that emotional connection all the way through.
You can listen to that wonderful conversation with George Hunt by going to chiefmaker.com/371. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the podcast and check out all the other great interviews with our chiefs and gurus, as well as all the minisodes by going to chiefmaker.com/listen now. All right, Chiefs, let's get back to Neil Craig. Let's talk about philosophy there. You mentioned that, and that is something that I'm a very big believer in, knowing your beliefs and your philosophy about your work and your leadership. How does someone go about developing that?
Yeah, we got to think about it, because see, when you're in a position of leadership, and there's a whole range of different levels of leadership, your capacity just to lead yourself to start with, which I talk to players a lot about. But let's talk about, say, a CEO role or a senior coach's role. You've got to be really, really clear on your philosophy, and you've got to think about why. And in the end, it gets back to you need to know what you value. So your value system dictates a lot of that. Your capacity to not be black and white, because there's never a perfect answer. There's always case studies in every day of our lives. There's the rugby union one at the moment with Israel Folau at the moment. It's not a black and white decision. Some people think it is, but it's not.
No.
But someone will make a decision on that. And so to have a value system that you know about, and that can change over time. Your value and your philosophy about why you do things becomes your guiding principle, becomes your North Star, if you like.
Exactly.
And that's what you'll rely on all the time.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got a well thought out, ingrained philosophy, Greg, what happens is that will be reflective of your decision making. You'll be wishy-washy. You'll actually make a decision based on the last person you spoke to.
Yeah. I went through a process a while back where I asked myself a bunch of questions. One is, what do I believe to be true about the world and who I am, and what's my why and my values? And then I wrote down 10 principles I have about life and then about work.
Yep.
And I've got those 2 lists, 10 each.
Yeah.
And they keep me so centered.
Yeah.
And if you can just do that, that puts you in a really good position to always make the right decision.
Yeah, the right decision for you, because in the end, you've got to make the decision. If you're in a position,
live with it.
Yeah. And more often than not, your leaders are the deciders.
Yeah.
Like they actually get to decide, even though they may take in other information. And so exactly what you've done is really important as a leader.
Yeah.
Because they become your guiding principles. Yes. And you imagine if you haven't done that, so you wouldn't know where to turn to.
Yeah, that's right. You don't know, as you say, you don't know your North Star. You can't, you don't really know how you fit in.
On the leadership stuff, I mean, I think, where do we go wrong sometimes as leaders? I was reading something the other day, and it really resonated with me in terms of leadership, and it was something along the lines that leadership, it's not about you, and yet the next point, but it's all about you. Now, listeners might think, well, what's this old fella talking about? It's not about you, because there's an understanding in reality that to get a performance, I can't create that performance. I can't do the hands-on stuff myself. Selection of good people. I need training of those people. I need to retain those people. I need to develop those people. So, they don't want to leave our organisation. And then there's the concept, well, what if they do want to leave it? Why would you train all these people up if they want to leave? Well, why would you want to keep them if you don't train them? So it's not about me.
Yeah.
Because I don't actually do the hands-on and do the work. But it is all about me, because I have to create an environment where these people actually want to do the work, and they're enthused to do the work, and they share ideas, and they collaborate, and they bounce out of bed in the morning, and they want to come to this environment. So to me, that is the role of the leader, to be able to create that environment where people can be their best they can possibly be. And then, of course, you get the performance that you need. So it's not about me, but it's all about me.
It's all about you.
Yeah.
That's a great saying. I like it.
Yeah, because I've seen other environments, and you would have seen them as well, whether it be in high performance sport with a senior coach or CEOs. More often than not, the biggest problem that occurs is the person that's sitting in the chair.
That's right. Yep.
Because of
fish rots from the head.
Because of their behaviours.
Yep.
Of what they do or don't do. So it's a crucial role.
Thank you for explaining that. Now, listen, we're getting towards the end, and I've got a few questions we ask all great chiefs and gurus.
Yeah.
First of all, look, I know you're a man that loves books.
Yeah.
Do you have any book recommendations for people?
Oh.
We're in your office here, and there's about 1,000 books. Just come on, pick one.
Well, I don't know. I reckon
this one looks good. Chief Maker knows.
Chief Maker, I'd highly recommend. Easily read, great examples, real life examples. Yeah, I mean, once again, I'm a great reader. I mean, I love reading, and because there's all these lessons that people have been through that I don't have to go through if you know about them. I very rarely read a full book. I'll often buy a book for a particular chapter that I might see in it.
Yep.
I reckon probably the one I have read that stands out would be the legacy one, which is
sure. Yep.
Which is about the All Blacks.
Yep. James Kirk.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Most people would know that.
Yep.
I think
I'll put a link to it. It's a good book.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of good lessons in it. And once again, it's like most things. It's not there to necessarily agree with everything. To take that and do it exactly as they talk about. But it just throws up. I'm a great believer that success leaves clues. So go and look at the serial successful companies.
Yep.
Who have stood the test of time. Because they've jumped all the hurdles, and they can, and so they've been able to continue to perform for long periods of time. Go and talk to and look at individuals who have been successful over a long period of time, and there'll be some common threads and trends there that are worth using in your own company or lifestyle or whatever you're doing. And so I gravitate to those in my readings. I tend to gravitate, to to the All Blacks, just doing some stuff at the moment about San Francisco, the Warriors in the NBA,
Sure.
Popovich with the San Antonio Spurs, you've got the New England Patriots,
Yep.
It goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
So success leaves clues, and people are prepared to write about it. So go and read about
Go
it.
and read about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. I'll put a link to the legacy in the show notes for people. What is the most important part of your routine?
It's a new one I'm trying to get a handle on, and I'm really enjoying it at the moment, Greg, is I try and get up around about 5:30, and it varies a little bit between 5 and 6 o'clock, but roughly 5:30. I come down in my study here, where you're at the moment, and I spend about a half an hour just preparing for the day. I just do some journaling, some key things I've got to do today, and one of those was to have this session with you. What are my overall aims, general aims, and one might be I just want to continually, recalibrate my thinking to make it what I call world class. Try and get back into that thought process.
Yep.
It might be I need to make sure that my general health, fitness, and well-being is catered for each day. And I find it's a route, and by I spend about half, 3/4 an hour on that. And I just find one is it just stimulates my brain for the day, and I'm prepared for the day, and I'm prepared to jump into the day and attack it. So sometimes it's difficult because you have late nights or whatever.
Yeah.
But I find it's a routine at the moment that I'm really enjoying, and I would recommend to anyone to try it.
Yes.
yeah,
We talk a lot about a daily focus session in what we coach.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a similar process that you're going through. Clear preparation. You're turning up with your game face every single day, and being prepared in advance for meetings. You already know what's going to be said in the meeting. You know your outcome of the meeting. This kind of stuff is really powerful. And
And the other thing which I want to try and put into that routine is to spend 15 or 20 minutes at night sort of reviewing the day. Now, I haven't been very good at that. So I want to add that to my daily routine, because I know, once again, it's just from a reflective point of view.
Yep.
That can actually, in terms of learnings from the day, can be so useful.
Yeah.
So,
okay, the final 5 or 6 questions that all our chiefs answer. What is the next thing in life you're most excited about?
I reckon it'll be post World Cup, and I don't know what that looks like at the moment, but I'm starting to think, in terms of what that maybe could look like.
Yep.
As a general higher level thinking, I over my journey, I've been through a whole range of different experiences and environments and sports at the highest level. So I think I've got something to offer in terms of helping people to be the best they can possibly be, or organisations. Now, what that looks like in terms of day to day, I'm still trying to put that together. But I'm excited about planning for that and trying to execute it. So pulling all that stuff together, because I enjoy. For example, I spent some time with a coach 2 days ago, high performance coach in a sport here in Melbourne, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Just finding out what his issues were, what was keeping him awake at night, why he coaches.
Yeah.
And, he said he really enjoyed it, but what he didn't realise is how much enjoyment it gave me.
Yeah.
So when I walked away, I thought, how good was that the guys actually asked me to come and talk to him. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Can you nominate another CEO or guru you hold with great respect you think should be on the podcast?
Yes. If you get a chance, do yourself a favour and do your listeners a favour to interview a guy called Rick Charlesworth.
Oh, yes, I'd love to meet Rick Charlesworth. Yeah, the great Australian hockey coach.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. It's people wouldn't. He's also medically trained, so he's worked in the medical field as a doctor, as a medical doctor.
Wow.
He's been a politician for X number of years.
Yeah.
Been an outstanding athlete at the Olympic Games.
Yep.
And then he's coached, gold medals at not only World Championships, but male Olympic gold, female Olympic gold.
Yep.
And I was lucky enough to be able to spend a whole day with him in January with Eddie Jones here in Melbourne.
Wonderful.
And it was just a wonderful experience. So he's a challenging guy. Like, he'll challenge a lot of your thinking.
Good.
But I'd recommend that you if you get a chance there. In terms of CEO, a guy at the moment who was my CEO at the Adelaide Football Club and for a period of time at Carlton was a guy called Stephen Trigg. He's now a CEO of a big wine company in Adelaide. But he's seen the highs and lows of CEO leadership in AFL clubs and now's outside of sport. So he'd be an interesting guy to talk to.
Right. Yeah,
in terms of
we'll try and track him down and get him on.
And he'd be a really interesting guy to talk to. Yep.
Maybe we should interview him together and make him supply the wine. Okay, if you could lead any company, I'll change it up for you. If you could coach any team
on
the planet, you get straight to head coach position.
From a challenge point of view, from an absolute challenge point of view, it would be an EPL club in England.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a really unusual environment those head coaches work in. So that would be an enormous challenge, and to do something different.
Yeah.
To do it different. In terms of outside of that, I reckon that the next challenge I see, and I'm not necessarily sure of the sport, Greg, but I reckon there's another, as we go into the future, the role that a head coach plays in terms of what I call the true sense of leadership, because very little in the picture I have in my head of what that leadership role looks like, there's very little hands-on involved. You call it the X and the O's.
Yep.
Now, do you need to have a knowledge of the sport? Maybe.
Yep.
Probably. But I'm not totally convinced of that.
Sure.
But when some of the aspects we've spoken about leadership today would be interesting and a real challenge to go into a sporting organisation and say, well, I'm not going to be doing much of the X and the O's. In actual fact, I'm not going to be doing anything of it. But a guy called Greg Layton who will look after that from the aspect of it. So my role will be to enable him to do the best job he possibly can.
Environment.
Yeah. And maybe on game day is that there'll be someone else in the box that's really looking at the way the game's unfolding, and that'll be their expertise. And now I might be the ultimate decider, but don't expect to see me on the phone or
yeah, sure.
So to do it differently.
Yeah.
To do it differently is a real, I see as a real challenge.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to see that. I really would. Yeah. Okay. What is a final message of wisdom and hope you think is vital for the next generation of executives and coaches?
Just what I said a minute ago.
Right.
It's not about me.
Yep.
But it's all about me.
Nice.
I think you get a handle on that. You'll create an environment where people will want to work for your company or your club. Yep. They want to come. You'll be a company of destination.
Sure.
If you like. Yeah. They'll know that they can be the best they can possibly be. They'll develop in your organisation. And I reckon the other thing will be if you're able to have that thinking, in other words, it's not about me, but it's all about me, you'll get feedback when you need it without asking for it. And therefore, that will be a great asset to you, because the sooner you get feedback as a leader about particularly poor behaviour that you either know or you're not, it's a blind spot for you, the sooner you get that and your capacity to address it, they'll be amazed how many of the problems go away. So it's not about you, but it's all about you.
And that is some way to finish. Thank you for coming on the show.
Good on you, Greg.
Awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Chiefs, that sums it up for this week. What an incredible guy. And Neil was just such a truly engaging, humble, interested and curious man. We recorded this at his own home, in his office, in his sort of garage area. It was full of books and these frameworks and drawings and things on the walls. You could see this is where he went to think and learn and plan the demise of the competition. What an outstanding man and a really great character. Chiefs, you can get all the links and resources. Go to chiefmaker.com/373. And if you would like to stay in touch and hear all about some of the best resources you can find anywhere in the world to improve your performance at work, go to chiefmaker.com/subscribe. Now, Chief, if you're yet to rate the episode and subscribe, I hope you'll do so soon. It helps others see the magnificent value that the Chiefs and Gurus bring to their life and career. So make sure you hit subscribe on your podcast app now, give it a 5-star rating if you think it's worthy, and leave a short review about your favourite episode. Righto, Chiefs, as always, remember to stay epic.